David begins and ends his military career fighting giants. In the first battle, he gains an incredible victory. In the last battle, he suffers defeat. Yet in his defeat, we find one of David's greatest successes. Turn your Bible to 2 Samuel 21 as we examine David's last giant. When David faced Goliath, he was young and newly anointed as the next king. When David faces Ishbibenob, he is an aging king, no longer physically able to fight like he once did. So when David comes out to face the Philistines once again, he becomes faint. Through his reign, Israel had gained great victories, but David had been humbled by his own sins and the dire consequences of them. In 2 Samuel 11, as Israel's armies went out to fight the Ammonites, their king and leader stayed behind. During one sleepless night, he sees a woman named Bathsheba and he commits adultery with her, and ends up having her husband Uriah killed. However, David repented of his sins, and refused to make the same mistake again. Though he is older and unable to fight like he once did, he does not stay behind, but leads Israel's army into battle. There he meets Ishbibenob, who, seeing David was exhausted, seeks to kill him. We're not given the size of Ishbibenob. He is classified as one of the sons of the giant. This was the general classification of giant people. The term giants is translated Rephaim in Genesis 14, when the Eastern Alliance defeats the Rephaim from Ashtaroth, which becomes one of the chief Philistine cities. In Deuteronomy 2, 10 and 11, Moses gives the different references used to describe these huge human beings. The Emims dwelt there in time past, a people great and many and tall, as the Anakims, which also were accounted giants, as the Anakims, but the Moabites called them Emims. Some doubt the existence of giants, but there is a mountain of evidence for their existence. We won't cover that here, but let me encourage you to read this article from Apologetics Press by Kyle Butt. I'll link it in the comments below. This Ishbibenob had a spear whose head weighed 300 shekels of brass, or around 8 pounds, about half the size of Goliath's, but still much bigger than what was used by a normal-sized soldier. He also had a new sword, and he thinks he's about to kill the Israelite king with it. David is all but defeated. He doesn't have the physical strength to face another giant, but there's someone else there who does. His name is Abishai. Abishai is quite the warrior, and always ready for a fight. His brother Joab was captain over David's army, and Abishai himself was one of the chief officers. He and David went way back. As a young soldier, he was with David as he fled from Saul. In fact, it was Abishai who encouraged David to kill Saul when they snuck into Saul's camp while he slept. Later, Shimei, Saul's kinsman, cursed David and threw stones at his men as David fled from Absalom. Abishai says, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Let me go over and take off his head." And then Shimei comes and apologizes to David, but Abishai still wants to kill him. 2 Samuel 23 lists some of the heroic deeds of David's soldiers. Abishai is listed as the chief of the second three, where it says of him, "And he lifted up his spear against 300 and slew them, and had the name among three. Was he not most honorable of three? Therefore he was their captain." When Abishai sees Ishbibenob coming after David, he attacks the giant and kills him. What happens next is very interesting. David's men tell the king to retire. "Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel." David's abilities, and therefore his role, has changed. He shouldn't be out fighting the giants anymore. If David is killed in battle, it would not only be a great embarrassment to the nation, they would be leaderless and lost. Israel now had plenty of other men who could fight the giants. The text continues to describe 3 more giant battles, which are also described in 2 Chronicles 20, 4-8. Battle number 1. Israel and the Philistines meet in Gob, better known as Gezer. It was a Philistine city at this time, but becomes an Israelite city during Solomon's reign. In this battle, an Israelite soldier named Sibbecai, the Hushathite, kills a giant named Saph. As a result, the Philistines were defeated. Battle number 2. Again in Gezer, another Israelite warrior named Elhanan the son of Jair kills Goliath's brother Lami, whose spear, like Goliath's, was like a weaver's beam. An interesting controversy arises over the descriptions of this battle between 2 Samuel 21 and 1 Chronicles 20. This controversy has led some to question whether David killed Goliath or this man Elhanan. To study more about this controversy, I once again refer you to a really good article at Apologetics Press entitled Who Killed Goliath? By Joe DeWeese. Battle number 3. This time the battle is in Gath, where another giant threatens the armies of Israel. I have taken to calling this giant Mr. 24. He had 24 fingers and toes. Like Goliath before him, he defied the armies of Israel, and also like Goliath, he was killed by an Israelite champion from the house of Jesse, David's nephew Jonathan, son of David's brother Shimea. These battles are summarized. These 4 were descended from the giants in Gath, and they fell by the hand of David and by the hand of his servants. David's first battle was a giant victory over a giant man, Goliath. David's last battle was a minor defeat against a giant, Ishbibenob. However, in this series of battles after his retirement, we see an underappreciated aspect of David's great legacy. When David came to the battle in the valley of Elah, there was not a single man in Israel willing to face a giant. Not one, including Saul, Saul's captain Abner, or David's 3 oldest brothers. Fast forward to the end of David's reign, and he is surrounded by people itching to fight the Philistine giants. So much so, they tell David to go home, because they have it covered. In fact, Jonathan, the son of one of those men who ridiculed David for wanting to fight Goliath, killed a giant of his own. Bravery inspires bravery. These warriors in Israel needed to see what was possible with God on their side. David showed them what God could do when he chopped off Goliath's head. David inspired a whole generation of warriors to take down giants after his champion days were over. Older men, what are you doing to prepare and inspire the next generation of champions? This life is not forever. Who will fight the giants left standing when you are no longer able to fight, or the future giants yet to appear? Younger men, before you have come a long list of champions who have won many great victories against terribly frightening opponents. Be inspired by them. Take time to learn from these warriors while they are here, and learn about the ones who have gone on before. You should find yourself some Davids, warriors of the past and present who will inspire you to greater faithfulness. Soon you will begin to take their place in the fight against the darkness of this world. Prepare yourself for the fight, so that one day you can tell them, "Rest now, I've got this covered." David's last battle was a defeat, but that defeat gave rise to a wonderful picture of the influence that comes from faithful bravery. David is called the light of Israel. May we be the light of the world, showing the way of faithfulness to those living in fear and without hope, by living the great lessons from David's last giant.